exponent. So let's just break down that word. Rational is another way to say fraction, okay? It's like the actual way you're supposed to say fraction, but we just call it fractions. So anytime you see rational exponents, it just means that they're fractional. Let's call it that way, fractional exponents, okay? So we've kind of talked about this before, but we haven't gone real deep into it. If you have a 1 on top, it just means it's pretty basic. So it looks like this, basically. We just don't typically write that first power. If it's written like this, the rule kind of looks like here, this, okay? And let's explain what I mean by this and this. Okay, so what would separate colors here? If it's the top, and I'm just gonna put my colors now, the bottom. Okay, the top number tells you the actual power of the base. And recap, the base is whatever the number, variable, exponent, whatever you want to call it, or not exponent, sorry, the number the variable is. So this is the base. The n is the type of radical. So the denominator tells you if it's a square root, so like square root, cube root, all that. All right, so we're just going to dive right into it. So I'm going to do quite a few of these. Actually, let's look what we have. And then I have a lot of examples, so I probably won't dive into all of them, but I'm definitely going to break this video up into 3 parts just so it's not so much. All right, so number 1, it looks almost exactly like this. The only difference is there's an A and there's a number here. The number here is telling you that it's x to the first power, and the 4 tells you it's the 4th root. Okay, so it's literally how you break it down. Okay. Now this is both these are inside parentheses, so I'm just going to write it with inside parentheses here. The top power is the power of what this whole thing is, the base, and the bottom is the root, so it's the 4th root, and that's literally your answer. Now you could write it like this, but there's no need to. It's exactly the same thing. All right, so I'm going to skip 3, and let's go on to 4, because these all have 1s here, so let's get into something a little bit more complicated. So I have 7 squared because that's the top number, and then the bottom number is my root, so it's a cube root. Now we can simplify this. 7 squared is 49, and because it says simplify if needed, so we are going to simplify that, and that would be the answer. Okay, you're only going to have to simplify it. There's a number here, and you're doing something other than 1, so since it's a 2, we have to simplify that. And we're not actually going to simplify the radical, we're just going to set it up. Okay, so no simplifying the radical. All right. Let's skip 5 and go to 6. Let's work with numbers. I think we'll need more help there. The top number is telling you what the power is for 3, and the bottom number tells you the type of radical. And go figure, I don't have my calculator out. So let's get this, because you can hear the clicks every time. 3 to the 5th power is 243. So we have 4th root of 243, and that's all we need. Okay? So, let's move down to 7. So on 7, we have AB in parentheses. So we're going to put it in parentheses. And the 3 is the power of AB. And then 4th root of the whole thing. Okay, so that's the answer. Now, could you write it like this? Oops, I didn't mean to write that. Oops, back up. Remember that 4 has to be in the little like check mark part of the radical. Okay, so if not, it's multiplying. It's not telling you what type of radical. You could write it as a cubed, b cubed, but this is just fine. Okay. Number 8. We have negative 6x. It's squared because of the 2. And then we're going to make our radical symbol, and we're going to put a 3 here because the bottom number is 3. Now, you could simplify this, and I really would like you to, because we know how to. With this being squared, it's saying negative 6 squared is 36, and x is x squared, and that would be the simplified version. So I guess let's just try to simplify all the variables so we can be consistent here. Now this 7 does not have a power. Well, it does. It's to the first power. It doesn't have a fractional power, a rational power. So we're just going to leave it sit out. It's actually going to sit outside the radical. And then we're going to put the 12w to the first power, and it's a square root. So that's what it looks like. There's nothing that you write here. Just to clean it up, it really would be something like this. It's exactly the same as what we just wrote. Okay? I'm going to lie, we're going to do this in two parts. So I'm going to do this first page and then the back page is the second part. So now we're going to go the opposite way. So what I want you to do is write 16 to the first power if there's no power for it. So this is our base. This is the radicand is inside of the radical, so now it's going to turn into our base. So it turns into base. The inside power is 1, so that's the top. The radical is cubed, so it's 1/3, and that is your answer. That's it. Okay. Now, if there's more than one term in here, what I want you to do is put parentheses around it, and then figure out what the power is, unless it's written differently. So if there's no power, think of it this way. The whole thing's in parentheses. So x, y, inside's 1. There's nothing written, so it's a square root. Okay, simple as that. Just like number 12, I'm going to put parentheses around it because there's no power written, so it's like having it to the first power. Okay, everything is to the first power, it's just not written. 8w in parentheses, just like here. Power inside is 1. Radical is 4th root, so that's the bottom, and that's your answer. Now, if you look at 13, there's actually a power on 11, and that's fine. So you get 11. The top number is always the power of the inside, and then 3 is the cube root, because that's the power for it's called the index. It's the index of the radical. Okay. 14 is just like 13, except for it has a variable, so it's k. The power on that k is 5, and then the radical is 4, so it's k to the 5/4 power. Okay. Now I keep saying every time we do this, the power on the inside. I keep saying the power on the inside. But what if it's on, oh, forgot the end. What if it's on the outside? Okay, what if it's on the outside? So the rule actually says that this is equivalent to this. So if the power's on the outside, it's equivalent to being on the inside. So I'm going to rewrite this. 4th root, whatever's on the inside, I'm going to put parentheses, and this power I'm going to make now move to the inside, so it's like what we were doing. So it's no different. You don't have to do what I just did, but if that helps you, do it. So the power on the inside or the outside is what goes up top of the fraction. On the type of radical goes on the bottom. Okay. Now these have all types of things, so it makes it a little bit more complicated when they have different powers. So you have to do them individually. Okay, individually. So 10 is to the 5th power, so that's the top number. There's technically a 2 there because it's a square root, so we got 10 to the 5/2. A is to the 3rd power, and we divide by whatever the type of radical is. And we have b to the 1st power divided by the type of radical. So they're all divided by the same type of radical because they're all under a square root, but the powers are just different. Oh, and I skipped 15. We'll go back to it. All right, this type is a cube root. The power of 9 is 1, so if its power's not written, it's 1. So power is 1, root is 3, so that goes to the bottom. X to the 7th, root is 3, so that goes to the bottom. And y to the 4th, root is 3, goes to the bottom. Okay? And last but not least, because for some reason I skipped it, is number 15. So kind of like 16, the 7 can go on the inside, but you have to put parentheses around what's on the inside, and then you take your square root. So 3m's on the inside, the 7's on the inside, and the type of radicals too. All right, so we're going to make it a little bit more complicated on the back page, but I'm not going to do all of the problems. So go ahead and follow along to the next video. Hope everything's going well.